Hello, I am Patrick Cawley with Keystone Elder Law. This is Keynotes, a series of conversations about issues affecting the elderly, people with disabilities, and veterans of the armed forces. I am thrilled today to be joined by Richard Ruda of Visiting Angels. Richard, thank you very much for joining me. Why don't we start off by you just telling me what drew you to Visiting Angels and to home care, which is what the services that you provide?
Oh, it's an ironic question, Patrick. My background, I'm undergraduate in nursing. My graduate degree is in health services administration. Most of my career has been in healthcare management. About 7 years ago, I was running a durable medical equipment company. My assistant was off, and a total stranger walked in my office, and he said something. And it wasn't a voice; it was a feeling. I just got to get this guy's contact information. He got a CPAP, came back out, and started up a conversation, and he invited me to lunch. Well, ironically, he was the owner and who started this franchise 9 years prior to that. So I wasn't even looking for this business. And 6 years later, I realized it was a blessing because I'm able to help people stay at their nursing homes. I'm able to help families when I couldn't help my own mom and dad. My father was severely demented. My mother was severely arthritic. And I would see her about 200 miles away from me. So I would see them every maybe 4 to 6 weeks. And every time I'd say, Mom, you need help. No, I don't. Mom, you need help. No, I don't. And every time I'd see her, and the stress, the caregiving kept adding on to her. I don't want to pay anybody X amount of dollars. I don't want anyone in my house. And after the fifth, sixth time, I mean, it was just explosive conversation. So I threw my hands up in the air. Shortly after that, my mother fell, and my father could not call 911. And I admitted my mom and dad to a nursing home the same day. And literally, it was the worst day of my life because it could have been prevented. So that's why I'm in a very unique role now to utilize that experience. I just, ironically, not coming here at the same conversation with the referral. And his dad does not want services. And so I shared it with him, the conversation. If I could do it again, this is what I'd say. You know, Mom, I love you very much. However, this is just not about you. This is about us. I worry about you. Just try it. It's a 10-day notice. Let's just give it 10 days, see if it works. And, you know, so anyway, so it's just really neat having a business that has a great purpose behind it. It's a tremendous amount.
And like you said, the referrals, the people who come to you and ask about your service will immediately connect with that story, because if it's a child of a parent, you know, they're probably going through the same thing. You know, we've all seen the surveys of how people prefer to stay independent and to stay in their homes as long as possible. And I think many people just have the tendency to push that envelope a little far. And if there's a fall, you and I both know that's going to start a downward spiral of health consequences that you might not bounce back from. So you're so right there telling the story about maintaining independence.
Mm-hmm. And then when I also tell people, families, I give them a different perspective. When I often will go in a home, if I'm doing an intake, I say, you know, my main concern is not the client. If it's a husband-wife situation, my main concern is the caregiver. Because if you don't take care of that caregiver and something happens to that caregiver, this whole situation, you're in crisis overnight. And often they don't realize that, you know, and it just helps. It helps a lot. And you don't know these things until you go through them. And unfortunately, it's too late.
That's a great point. You know, I've heard 𝐊𝐞𝐲𝐬𝐿, who's our care coordinator, a registered nurse herself, worked in care facilities. She tried to be that caregiver for many hours a day for a family member and found herself struggling in that role. And there's a trained professional, and it's just different when it's personal. It's different when you're trying to balance your work and your family life with caring for an older family member. So I hadn't thought of that perspective, that you're coming to the rescue and the support of that family caregiver.
Yeah, and I often tell, I just actually had this conversation yesterday with the referral, and it's just like I said, one cannot love themselves. You have to love yourself first to love somebody else, but you can't care for somebody. You have to care for yourself first before you care for someone else. I use the analogy of being on a plane, and the instructions are, who did they put the oxygen on first, yourself or your child? It's you. So you can then take care of your child. So little things like that over time.
Good point. Good point. So tell me, what is Visiting Angels and what geographic area do you cover?
Sure. We are we're actually an international franchise. We have been voted #1 franchise last year, actually several years back now. And we service a tri-county area of Cumberland, Franklin, and Adams counties. And we've been in these counties for close to 16 years. Like I said, I bought the franchise from the original owner who had it for about 9 years, a little over 9 years. And we're into our 6th year already. So.
And let's talk about what services you provide. It is home care, and I think sometimes that gets mixed up in the public consciousness of home health, nurses, as opposed to the services you provide. So maybe tell us some stories about, or tell me what services you provide, but also if you can sort of put it in the context of actual people, it might make it easier to understand.
Yeah, no doubt. What I do is I do a lot of we do in our company, a lot of education to family members. It's very confusing. What is home health? What is home care? People are not really it's very confusing. And when I break it down for families, and when I tell families there's several types of home care. There is medical home care, which is a skilled nurse, a skilled therapist, physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy. There is durable medical equipment. That's wheelchairs, walkers, beds, lifts, things of that nature. And there's hospice. This is end-of-life care. All those 3 entities are paid by Medicare through Part B, which is great. That's intermittent care. That's where people come in and come out, literally probably not more than an hour at a time. Then you have what we do. It's called non-medical home care. It's basically assistance of daily living. Our goal is to keep your loved one in their home as long as possible, contingent on one thing: safety. That is the simple question, that you can ask yourself as to what to do. For my mom and dad, it was obvious. They couldn't stay home. It was not safe to stay home. So that's our goal, is to keep your loved one in your home as long as possible, as long as it's safe for the client, but also safe for the caregiver.
Okay.
The point when that's not able to occur, the dementia or whatever may get to a point that they need skilled services. Our business is based on what we call a servitude attitude, service over profit. We always want to do what's right for our clients, even if it's not in our best financial interest, because it gets to the point that home's not safe and you need to look for a long-term care facility or a personal care home. I help educate, and I actually help families select quality options. And that's a whole nother interview on that. Just like anything, there's good and bad in everything, quality providers and not quality providers in everything. So knowing those, I had about 7 years experience running. I was in that industry early on in my career. So I have that perspective as well, which is also very helpful in placing them in a quality facility.
Right. So, and you and I have talked about this before, where, we don't work independently in a silo. We are all part of interconnected professionals who are servicing the same clients, trying to help them improve their lives. And so you've been in the industry long enough that you're going to know, even when your company can no longer provide service because of safety, you're going to continue to guide them. And that's just fantastic. And so when you're helping people in the home, so you're helping them stay independent, you're helping them probably fulfill their desire to stay in their own homes. So I would imagine the kind of services that your team is providing are, helping them get out of bed and get dressed, maybe bathing, maybe some meal preparation. Is that generally the kind of service that we're looking at, just to get them through those maybe difficult tasks? If they have problems with buttoning a shirt, that will sometimes happen with certain conditions, and you just get them over that hurdle. And as long as they're not at that stage where they don't have a one floor living, and so stairs are just impossible to deal with anymore. But if they're still in a setting where they can safely live there, they just need help with certain activities. Is that where your team comes in?
Yeah, well, we keep it very simple. It's anything external to the body. Bathing, meal preparation. We take the place where families can't. And we'll lift as much weight as they could afford, our service, because they are not covered by Medicare. So we try and just, help them in that situation and ultimately keeping them at home. So.
Right. And so at a certain point, we've talked about how your team is in the home helping with the activities of daily living, but there does come a point where there are reasons for someone to choose a personal care residence or assisted living residence. But does your team continue to offer services even in that setting as well?
Yeah, well, what we find is, it's all about relationships. And it's developing that mutual commitment on both the caregiver and the family's part. When they have that mutual level of commitment, then that's a baseline a base for a relationship of trust. And what happens is I tell them, when that happens, they turn into angels. They truly do. And that when they have to progress to an assisted living or a nursing home, we've often have had follow those patients into those facilities. And so for some people have one-on-one care, which is wonderful if you can do that.
Right. And it's not a knock on the personal care facility at all. They just have a number of people who they are monitoring and caring for. And some families or individuals just prefer a more one-on-one connection. And I think you're right, especially when a relationship has already been developed. It just eases that transition to a more facility-based setting, and just helps them with one-on-one companionship and assistance.
Yeah, physiologically as well as emotionally, and because that's a huge transition, especially today with the virus situation. Well, it's just that's a whole nother dynamic.
Right. So shifting back to the home-based settings, I would imagine that in some cases, you covered how home health, whether it's a licensed nurse who's coming in intermittently, an hour here, an hour there. I would imagine that really depending on the needs of your clients, that you might be in for short periods of time, or you might be in there, for 12 hours at a time, but it would really depend on the circumstances. So someone, say, with dementia can't be left alone, whereas somebody else who just needs to get help getting over that hurdle of getting dressed in the morning, having some meals prepared, after that, they're going to be safe and they're going to be fine on their own. Can you just tell me some stories of clients who fit different dynamics that would require less or more of your team's time?
Yeah, it all comes down to individualized care. One of the things, I'm a nurse, once a nurse, always a nurse, although we are non-medical, what I've learned through my career is the importance, as it relates to the elderly, of keeping them engaged. It is so critical that once they lose that engagement, they lose what I call the will to live. It's game over. And unfortunately, it starts mentally when they decide it's not worth living anymore. So when we start a case, we develop what's called a care plan for the caregivers to follow. That is an interdisciplinary, that's engaged with the family. It's authored by the family, and ideally the client, if they can participate in that plan. And every care plan, we have goals, individualized goals. We just started a case just this past Friday, and this is a woman who's, everybody's home for the past several months, not going anywhere. So she's very much isolated with just the family there. And our caregiver has a skill. She's a music major. And so she loves music, this woman. So, just doing, playing some piano pieces for her each time. And she lit up like a light, it's all those little things. It's what's their favorite music. Is there some people haven't made their favorite chocolate cake with chocolate icing, just finding those individual things really is where we elevate the level of quality and really bring that, maximize that level of quality for that client and making their last days the best that they could possibly be.
That is so important. You're caring for the spirit first, and then closely followed by their physical needs. But I think we've, again, going back to that interconnected web of professionals, we could probably all tell stories of when you hear a client say, I don't want to deal with this anymore. I just want it to be over. And you just get that feeling in your stomach like, oh, that's not good. We need to find a way to connect this person with other people to find some source of hope and gratitude and joy, or else everything else we're trying to do is going to be very short-lived. So that's wonderful. So if people, I think it's impossible to hear you speak about, as I have before, about what you and your team do and not come away with the idea that this is coming from your heart. I mean, this is a passion for you. This is not just a business or a job. So undoubtedly people will listen to this interview and they're going to want to know more. Can people just call you and ask questions, or talk to your team and just ask questions? Or what's the best way for people to learn more, especially if they are in Cumberland, Franklin, or Adams County, they're in your service area? I think you're the type of guy that if they're not, you're going to come up with a really good referral to somebody else in the same line of work. But how can people get a hold of you and learn more about what home care is all about?
The best way to learn about ourselves is through our website, www.visitingangels.com/Carlisle. That's CARLISLE. That will bring you to our homepage. Our office, we have a main office and two branches of that main office in Chambersburg and Gettysburg. But that main number is 717-241-5900. And I would also be more than willing to speak to anyone directly, and that my cell number is 717-579-3199. And really love being able to help people, because I've been in that same path, and I know what those feelings are like. I know what it is to admit your mom and dad to a nursing home, put your dad in a locked unit, and turn your back on him. And it's something that you never forget that.
Right. It started with your own personal experience, and now you find a way to use that as your motivation to help families out there. And
that's a great feeling. I can't tell you.
It's got to be the best motivation. And we talked a little bit earlier about how, you have on your website your why, and the caregiver's why. That's your why. I mean, that's why you were doing what you were doing. And it's the best motivation anybody could have for their professional pursuit. So thank you so much.
Patrick, just one other comment. I just wanted to, you brought up about our network and how we all work together in helping people. And we're very blessed that our group, we often will work with other competitors and in cases. We're all challenged right now. This industry is a tough industry because it's hard to get to recruit and retain quality caregivers. It's just the way it is with our economy, the way it is right now. So often we will, and I've worked with several of my competitors, and it's about doing the right thing. Because if I can't help somebody, maybe somebody else can. And I think we're blessed. We're all blessed in our group to have this connectiveness and just trying to help each other and for the ultimate good, doing the right thing. That's
great. Richard, thank you so much for your time. I will post the contact information, your website address when I post this interview. But thank you for your time. I think a lot of people are going to get a lot out of this.
Oh, thank you, Patrick. You have a great day, boss.